it's your girl Aisha Beau here, and I'm really excited for this week's video because this video is inspired by one of your comments. Someone commented on my last talking self-love video asking if I could go through the process of my finances and how I got to where I am on my financial journey, and to just share that experience. And it was really interesting to hear that and hear that someone was interested in hearing about that, because I've never really shared on this platform details about my finances and what exactly my journey has been financially. But I guess because of the fact that my husband and I recently bought a house. And if you've been following me for many years, you'll see that I went from my Harlem apartment to a nicer apartment in New Jersey to now a house. I'm assuming that that's probably where the question stems from. I was excited and intrigued by this question and by this topic because I've always been the broke friend. Kid you not. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not just saying that to be relatable. I truly was the broke friend in my friend group for many years. So it feels good now to be in a place where I feel empowered and I feel confident about my financial situation, and I'm in a place where I can actually talk about it. So I just want to give y'all the tea, the full story on how it all began and how we got to where we are now, and the fact that I am nowhere near the wealth that I see for myself. You know what I'm saying? But I am doing so much better, and I feel the most stable financially that I have in my entire life. And if anyone else is in the situation where you are the broke friend, or you are somebody who is essentially trying to get by, make ends meet, robbing Peter to pay Paul, etc., and you just need a boost, you need some inspiration, this is the video for you. So I want to start off by saying that I am not one of those influencers or creators who came from a well-off family. I definitely had very humble beginnings growing up in a predominantly single mother household with my mom, who worked very hard to ensure that she could provide for us the best that she could. But I will be transparent. I definitely lived that life where sometimes I would be coming home from school and the lights might be off when I get home, and that's just what it is. We're gonna have to be living by candlelight for that night or for the next few days until, things get figured out. One, it definitely empowered me to work hard in school and to make sure that I made something of myself, because I didn't want this to be my life forever. But also it is something that I think about a lot, because I think now there's a lot of stance on bullying and making sure that you are treating everyone with respect, and that wasn't really the case when we were younger. And I think I felt a lot of things and a lot of insecurity just about myself physically, about my life in general. And so going to school, feeling that way, feeling out of place, going to predominantly white schools and whatnot, and then you come home and you experience something like that, it can be a little hard and a little bit traumatic, and it either hardens you or it makes you someone who puts on a different facade and tries to act as though, that isn't your life, and maybe you put on as though you have more money than you actually do. It affects people in a lot of different ways. It definitely motivated me, 1000%, but it also humbled me in many ways. And it also, I think, played a really big role in my self-esteem growing up overall. Not only was I insecure about the way that I looked and I felt, but I also knew that there was a stark difference between my friends and my home life, So that was really tough. And I think sometimes when you come from a family that doesn't have a lot of money, you start to think about what are the things that I deserve? What can I actually achieve? Will I make it out? And I think that although I was super motivated, there were still those times where in the back of my mind, I was wondering will this end up being my life? And so it was tough. But I pushed through, I worked hard, made sure that I got into college and went there. And of course I was on financial aid. I interned almost every summer in college, and then leading up to the time for me to graduate, I was like fighting hard to make sure that I had a job. It's not like I came from a rich family where my option would be, yeah, sure, I can just go back home and move in with my mom, but she's not going to be able to, afford to pay for an apartment for me and, pay for all the things that I need moving to New York. So I had to make sure that I had an opportunity lined up, and I did end up getting a job out of college. But that job, if I'm not mistaken, I believe my first salaried position paid me, I think it was $26,000 and some change. Like it was either $26,000 or $28,000, like, and some change. Like that was a PR, public relations assistant position at a very, very prominent public relations firm in New York City. I'm talking, we were working with the top brands, David Yurman, Diane von Furstenberg, all the luxury fragrances like Prada. It was insane, the fact that I was getting paid so little and working with brands that were so expensive, and so much luxury was just around me at all times. But, signing up to work in the fashion industry, this is the road, this is the way that it goes. So going into that industry again was kind of a blow to my self-esteem, because it's like, okay, I'm making this little bit of money and like this is all I get. Whereas my peers, sure, they're making $26,000, $28,000 a year, but their parents are like paying their rent, giving them an allowance, buying, paying for their travels, paying for their clothes. And so this is just like chump change. Like this is money they use to like drink and do drugs on the weekend. Meanwhile, I'm like, I gotta pay rent, I gotta pay my bills, and I gotta make sure that I have a little bit left over. I remember the firm that I worked at, if you worked past 8 p.m., they would give you can expense dinner. And sometimes I actually had no more work to do, but I would purposely wait until like 8:05 p.m., order some food. I might text my roommate and be like, hey girl, I have a stipend. I'm about to order some food. What you want? I can get us both like pasta or something easy. And, I just made it work. And the good thing about New York is that there's so many events with like free food and free drinks. So that was definitely like one of the ways that I got by. But I will say, as it pertains to like finances and being smart financially, I absolutely was not. And I'm not saying that I was spending lavishly. I was not spending lavishly by any means, but I was not saving, and I was not setting myself up for success long term when it came to my finances. I was literally living paycheck to paycheck. I made sure that my bills were always on time. I never missed a rent payment. I was not late on my utility bills and whatnot. Like I really had that discipline, which was great. If I needed extra money and didn't have it because I wasn't paid, I would I pretty much had maxed out credit cards for as long as I could remember. And it wasn't easy and it wasn't hard. And I definitely, started to feel a little bit of jealousy, like as I matriculated through my career and realized that like my pay bumps, I went from 26 or 28 to then making like 32. And then it took me forever to get to like $35,000. And then I remember I finally got to like in the $40,000 range, and I was so happy. But by then, all my friends were making like 60K and up, or if they started out in finance, they were making already six figures, so I always felt as though I was behind in that way. I felt as though I was limiting myself because I wasn't there financially. And I think a lot of people like, oh, money doesn't buy happiness, money isn't everything. Well, money isn't everything, but it is a very, very important piece of the puzzle. And I think a lot of the times people who struggle with their mental health and depression and anxiety, the root of it is money. It is that financial insecurity, not knowing where your money is going to go, or if you're going to be able to pay for the things that you need to survive, and also not being able to take care of yourself and indulge in the things that you know that you deserve. I made sure I did my own nails, I did my own hair. I didn't really shop for clothes that often, and if I did, this was back when H&M was actually very cheap. It was Forever 21, H&M, any little shop that I could squeeze some clothes out of just so I could be cute at these free events where I got me some free food. It was just me literally living and getting by the best I could for so many years working in the fashion industry. I also borrowed a lot of clothes from the fashion closet. Coming from a family that didn't have a lot of money and then going into a low-paying career, you're definitely set up to be a little bit behind. So eventually I worked really, really hard and was like, my mental health is not as important. I think my insurance helped me to afford some anxiety medication to help me to just get by. I did what I could to work my way up. And eventually I did get to my most high paying career, and I was the director of communications for a global luxury brand. But when I was making $80,000 a year. And it's definitely an amount of money that a lot of people wish for and work for and hope for. I just realized that I had gone so many years in the industry and gotten this title where I was pretty much reporting in directly to the designer himself, who was making pieces that were going for like thousands of dollars, and that's what I was making, was a bit tough and a bit tricky. Along with the fact that I was no longer happy in PR, this was also just a sign that like, this is just not for me long-term. This is not a sustainable career for me long-term, because I'm gonna now have to put in double the years just to finally get to the six-figure mark, or, get to a place where I feel is comparable to that of my peers. And so along with the decision to finally pitch myself and be the forefront of my own brand, finances were a huge part of that. And I was like, there's no way for me to keep matriculating up in this industry and actually make the money that I want to make. So I'm just going to have to create my own career path and figure it out. I had always known that I wanted a bigger life, and I wanted to be somebody who was wealthy and had financial security and felt confident and comfortable in my finances. Going into entrepreneurship and essentially starting back at zero was really hard, but I knew that there was like a greater purpose. I knew that there was money to be made. Essentially, everything was on me. I couldn't blame it on the fact that my superiors wouldn't give me a raise. I couldn't blame it on the fact that I worked for a company that paid X amount of money. Like becoming an entrepreneur was a huge risk, as someone who already wasn't feeling financially stable. But I will say that it's helped me to get to a point now where I feel becoming a millionaire at some point in my life is actually attainable, because there's nobody else in my way who is going to stop that from happening. So now this is where we're going to get, now that you have the backstory and all the details leading up to my entrepreneurship and like where I started financially, we are now in the entrepreneurial times. And at the beginning of my journey to entrepreneurship, I was making $300 a week from unemployment, and that was it. I learned during that time, when I really was making like no money, I learned then how to save. Thankfully, I was able to leave my job and I didn't have to worry about paying rent, because my now husband, then boyfriend, we had lived together. So he said he would cover me and he would help me out during that beginning stage of entrepreneurship. So that was very helpful. But I do want to preface this by saying that we did not have that relationship where he's paying rent, he's still paying for all these things. We're doing lavish, expensive things every day. He's buying me designer bags. Like, he was not my sugar daddy. He was my boyfriend who I lived with, who was supporting me by taking on the burden of rent and bills so that I could see through this entrepreneurial dream. That was that. So at the end of the day, I was living rent-free, but I was still overall very broke. But the great thing about my husband is the fact that he is extremely financially sound. He is somebody who takes finances very, very seriously. Although I was only making $300 a week, he told me I needed to have a call and get an account set up with his financial advisor. When I tell you he told me to talk to his financial advisor, and I was sitting there like crying to him, and I was like, I don't have any money saved. I just have debt. I'm not making any money. Like, what am I going to talk to this man about? Like, I felt so insecure and so just like, well, like when you're broke, and you don't have any money, the idea of saving and taking money seriously and planning is just like so far from your mind. You're just like, this is not possible because I literally don't even make enough to feed myself, every day. So how the heck am I going to start saving, et cetera, et cetera. Through the tears, he was not taking no for an answer. So I had a call with Joe, who is our financial advisor. And Joe was just so kind. He understood the situation. Like I told him, I'm an entrepreneur. I have no money right now. I am on the rise. He still was like, okay, but we still have to put money away every month. He set me up with 2 life insurance policies as well as a brokerage account to save. And he was like, how much do you think you can save a month? And I was like, I can't save anything. I make no money every single month. So there's no way that I can save. I was like, I'm making $1,200 a month. So I don't know what to tell you. And he was like, all right, we're just gonna have to start really low. You're gonna save $50 for this account, $25 for this account, and another $25 or $50 for this other account. So I was saving like $125 every month. And when I tell you it was definitely the most gut-wrenching thing to do that, please believe me. Eventually, after a while, because I had it set up where it was automatically taking that money out, I wasn't really noticing it anymore. I learned to live with less than $125 every single month. While I was working, looking for other opportunities, this money was starting to grow and starting to build itself up over the time. In order for me to get that money, I would have to talk to him and ask him, or not ask him, but tell him, because it's my money. He's not going to tell me, no, I can't take it out. But I think that also helped me to be really accountable, because sometimes when we have saving accounts that are super easy to access, we put in $50 and the next day we take out $20 and then the cycle continues. And we essentially are not saving anything at all. I say this all to say that I learned how to properly save while being dead broke, while making absolutely no money pretty much. I think that is the first step in becoming better with your finances. It's 1, no longer being afraid of money, and 2, learning how to save when you don't have it, and understanding the importance of saving when you don't have money. Because I think a lot of times we're like, well, when I finally start making this amount of money, then I'm going to start saving. It doesn't work like that. You have to develop these habits early on so that when you start making money, you can just continue to maintain. As I did this, after speaking to the financial advisor, and then also, I started to get some opportunities, started working a little bit more, making a little bit more money every month in different freelance opportunities, I took it upon myself to start reading books on finances and start listening to podcasts about finances and just hearing different people's perspectives on money, why it's so hard to get, why it's so hard to keep, and why it has such a big hold on all of us. And I started to realize that oftentimes our fear of money is what makes us not really equipped to keeping it or getting it, because we're always coming from a place of lack. I'm so broke, I'm so poor, telling yourself this over and over. That then trains you to not save because I'm so broke, I'm so poor, how can I save? That's what you're feeding to yourself. Coming from a place where you get money and then you panic. Instead of like, you make some money, you sit down and you look and you create healthy boundaries and a healthy budget for yourself and decide, this is not going to be forever, but right now I'm going to pay my bills, save a little bit, as much as I can, and then have some leftover for my basic needs. Training yourself to think of money that way and understand that you have the control and the power to make your money work for you is so pivotal. And that really, really helped me. It helped me to create a huge sense of discipline on this journey. Like, I was making sure that I was saving, and I've had the same accounts now for years that I've just been building money and building and building and building because I'm allowing it to. And also, when it comes to financial stability, I think you have to throw shame out the window. Because when I was on my entrepreneurial journey, I went into it like, I am never going back to PR. I'm making sure that I'm focusing on this, and this is exactly what I want. This is what I'm going to get. This is the path that I'm on now moving forward. And there came a point in 2019 where at the end of 2019, where I had been an entrepreneur for almost 2 years, and I still hadn't seen a decent bump in money. I wasn't getting paid consistently. I wasn't making as much as I needed to get by. And I had to step back and humble myself and be like, okay, well, this is what I want. I want to keep on with this career, and I want to make ends meet. And I don't want to compromise this career, but I need to make some money. And I decided to go and start working at a restaurant. I think sometimes we cry about not making any money, but then we're like, oh no, I would never do that job, or I would never work here, I would never, and we're looking down at it essentially. But at the end of the day, is you trying to be rich? Is you trying to make money, or what? So I humbled myself, and I was working at a restaurant damn near full time. I was working there pretty much every day in the evenings during the week. I was doing the brunch shifts, and sometimes the dinner shifts on the weekends, on like Saturdays and Sundays. And then all the time in between, I was creating content for YouTube, for Instagram, and trying to build some brand partnerships and really get my brand off the ground. And I just continued to work really hard. And I think some people who want to be rich don't want to put in the work for it. Like, it's not always going to be glamorous. It's not always going to be easy. Like, sometimes you do need to get that second job, or sometimes you do need to get a part-time job, and it may not look like what you want to do for the rest of your life, but at the end of the day, it's going to give you some money right now so you can at least get yourself out of debt. So that restaurant job for me was really, really helpful. And I feel like it signaled to God that my time had come. God was like, all right, girl, you done put in the work. I believe in you. You got faith. You're working hard. You want this. So I'm gonna give it to you. In 2020, I lost my restaurant job because of COVID. And it was like mid 2020 when I started to finally see opportunity. I finally started getting brand deals. I finally started getting consistent income. And I was just like over the moon. And I continued to save. I continued to be mindful. I think one thing that obviously came in the way of the saving and really stacking that bread was the fact that we ended up getting married in 2021. And we both funded our wedding ourselves. Obviously, that was going to make a dent in our finances. So I still wasn't at the pinnacle of where I wanted to be financially at the end of 2021. But in 2022, I really continued to work hard, put in that work, and put myself out there. At the end of 2021, I did make 6 figures for the very first time. Around the time where I did make 6 figures, I would be about 3.5 years into my entrepreneurial journey. That was when I made 6 figures for the first time. Mind you, I had worked in the fashion industry, in corporate, with huge companies for, I guess it was about 7 years full time. And the most that I ended up making was $80,000. So the fact that I had made over $100,000 after 3.5 years was just like, that was a signal to me that I had made the right decision. Not only was I happy, felt good, empowered, but I also was making what I deserved. And I continued to use the things that I learned while being broke to help me to maintain that consistent financial security and growth throughout the process. My goal was to be happy and paid, happy and rich. And I was making that happen day in and day out because I got better saving habits. I learned that I have the power to make my money work for me. and to not be scared of my finances anymore, and to look at my situation from a place of abundance instead of a place of lack. An affirmation that I write down constantly, almost every single day, is I live a life of abundance. Money flows to me easily. I want for nothing and get everything that I deserve. And that is something that really is ingrained in me now, because I deserve this. I deserve it. And I want you to feel the same way too throughout your financial journey. And we can fast forward to 2023, last year, where I made the most money that I ever have in my entire life as a working professional. I made it all the way to 200K. And that for me was insane, so surreal, so crazy. But also, I guess I shouldn't say it was crazy, because I knew it was in me. I knew that I deserved it. Obviously, over the years, as every year passed, I would increase the amount that I was putting away to save. And I have like a nice amount of money in case there is a rainy day, in case something bad happens. And that all started with me putting away $25, $50 a week when I was only making $300 a week. It took that sacrifice and getting over that mental roadblock for me to set myself up for success, and to also know how to manage my money right now. One of the first things that I did as soon as I started to make consistent income was pay down debt. It's easy to start spending and accruing more debt, but I made sure that I was working on paying down my credit cards consistently. I fortunately did not have a ton of debt. It was mainly just credit card debt, and then obviously student loan debt, which, child, that's going to be with me for the rest of my life. But I made sure to start paying down credit cards consistently. This is obviously going to boost my credit score, and also having credit cards was going to help me to now be a little bit more liquid with my money, be able to buy the things that I want, experience things that make me feel happy and treat myself in different ways, and also making sure that I'm paying it down consistently. One of the things that I did to help me to pay down my credit cards was I used the snowball method. And this is essentially you pay down your smallest debt first, and then you continue to increase. So whatever my smallest credit card debt was, or my smallest credit card, I would work on that first and then build my way up to the next one that was more expensive than that, and then the next one. I had 3 credit cards that were maxed out. Like the smallest one, can you believe it? It was like $750, like very small. And so I was like, all right, this is what I'm going to focus on right now. And so I was just paying consistently to get rid of that $750 credit card debt. The thing about the snowball method that works is it's taking you a little bit longer, but it also boosts your morale in the process. So because of the fact that you can pay down that small debt a little bit quicker than you can the overall debt that you have, is going to empower you. So now when you pay off that $750, you're like, woo, I did it. Like, I paid down one of my credit cards. I'm good. Let me get on to the next one. So the snowball is essentially getting bigger and bigger and bigger as you go on. So then you move on to the next credit card that's a couple $1,000s, and it's going to take you a little while. It's going to be a journey. It's going to be a process, but you already have one down and you have another one to go. So I did that and paid down my credit cards one by one. It took me many, 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 many months, probably like a year or so, to get everything all together, because I had to, pay my other bills, had other expenses, et cetera, et cetera. I eventually got it done. And so once I paid down my credit cards, I then was able to actually use them or not use them. So you also have to be mindful about the interest rate on your credit cards, and what you're using them for, how often you're using them, and how you're paying them down at the end of the month. So recently, very, very recently, in 2023, because that was when I really truly started making some money and feeling good about my finances, that was when I started exclusively using credit cards for majority of my purchases, outside of like bill pay, and then maybe like every so often, maybe like a grocery store or something like that. But for the most part, I do use my credit cards a lot. And that's because it builds up your credit, it builds up points so you can have different perks, and it also allows you a little bit more flexibility and freedom to buy larger things and pay for, large ticket items all at once. What I do have to say is to not get yourself back in the position of maxing out your credit cards. Make sure that you're then using what you are making that's coming into your bank account, into your debit card, to then just pay off those credit cards, make your other bill payments, pay your rent, your mortgage, whatever it is first, then go in and pay your credit card, make your credit card payments as well. That for me has just helped me to, buy flights, buy hotel accommodations, buy clothes that I want and that I like. And then I just make sure that I'm paying down that credit card at the end of the month. Sometimes there's gonna be a month or two where you can't pay down the entire month, but I urge you to always put more than the minimum as your payment, because when you put your minimum payment in there, a majority of it is going to go to interest. So it's helpful to make sure that you're paying more than that, so you're actually getting some accrued to the principal balance, the actual balance of your credit card, and you can pay it down. Also, now that I'm making a little bit more money, I'm not just going to switch my life up and all of a sudden I'm only buying designer, I'm only flying first class, I'm like paying for all these expensive, lavish things. I'm still very mindful and make my coin stretch. I still do clothing rentals every single month. I am still being mindful of how I'm shopping. I'm making sure that I'm using the ShopRite app so I can see what the coupons are as I'm shopping. I'm making sure that I'm getting discounts, percentages off. Like, you still have to maintain that sense of being conservative and making sure that you're taking your time and really not taking your money for granted, because at the end of the day, all of this could disappear. Everything that you've worked hard for can start to slow down. And especially me as an entrepreneur, I definitely have slow months or slow quarters, and I have to be mindful of those. Like, I know at the beginning of the year, it's going to be slow. I have to work up to having more brand deals and opportunities that are then going to pay me. So I have to be really, really mindful Q1 and Q2 of every year, because that's when I have the least amount of money overall. So you still have to be very, very, very mindful and thoughtful as you spend your money. But I do want to say, once you start to make some money and you've paid down your debt and you start saving regularly, treat yourself, but also treat yourself in the process on your way up. Buy yourself a little thing every so often. It might be a Friday night and you've worked really hard and you put away to save all these things. Treat yourself to a nice dinner. Maybe buy yourself something that you've been eyeing for a little while. Treat yourself along the way, because I think sometimes, I know for me for sure, I never bought myself anything. I would never buy unless I was like, I have to get an outfit because I'm going to a specific event and I literally have nothing, or I have to, pay for this flight because it's for my friend's birthday trip, or I have to pay for this expensive dinner because it's my friend's birthday dinner. But I would never treat myself ever. And that's something that I regret. And it's something that I'm working on now. I never developed a habit of treating myself because I was always so concerned with spending money and not having enough for the things that I actually needed. But if you could easily spend your money on somebody else's birthday, somebody else's celebration, or, getting dressed for something else outside yourself, you can spend a little money on yourself. And so one of the things that I did to treat myself was I started getting regular manicure pedicures. And that, I think, started in like 2021. I started treating myself to getting a manicure and pedicure. And this was a moment where I could just be hands-free, sit back, get pampered, and feel good and empowered. So for me, when I show my manicures and I show my nails online, it's so much more than the design. It's an homage to the work that I've done to get to a place in which I can treat myself to the little luxuries that life has to offer. And I remember there was one time I was with some friends, my husband and another couple, and the wife of the couple was like, yeah, I complimented her on some type of home decor piece, and she was like, yeah, I was in Target and I just felt like picking it up and decided I'll just buy this. I was just in Target browsing. And I remember thinking to myself, this was like in the thick of it. This was at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. And I remember thinking to myself, I wish that I could just walk into Target or walk into any store and just browse and be like, oh, I'm going to buy this today. I'm going to buy this today. But I never felt that I could because I didn't just have extra money to get little trinkets that I liked or little things that I thought were cute. So now whenever I'm in Target or I'm in a store or I'm at home and I'm just like scrolling on my phone and browsing through shops and able to just not just save things, but actually treat myself to purchasing them, it feels really good. And I always think back to that moment. You know, it makes me feel very choked up just thinking about it, because it's just like people take for granted those little things, like being able to go into Target and be like, okay, I'm going to Target to get toothpaste, and then you happen to see a really cute home decor piece and be like, oh, I'm gonna go buy that as well. I've been in a place where I have not been able to. I just want to end this by saying that you deserve a life of abundance. You deserve the things that your heart desires, and you deserve to feel financially free, financially stable, and secure. It may not look like it right now. It may seem tough. It may seem bleak, but I just want you to use my life and my story as a testament to the fact that things can change and you can climb out of this hole. You can make a new way. I think it all starts with believing that, and believing that you can make a difference. And from there, just taking the small steps along the way to make it a reality. Thank you for sitting with me. If you watch this entire video, y'all know my favorite thing. If you watch this entire video from start to finish, I want you to comment that you are ride or die. I love it. I don't know. I might figure out some new phrase, but for now, you are ride or die. So let me know in the comment section if you watch this entire video. And if you have any questions and you want to talk about this topic a little bit more, let me know. I am always here. I'm always replying to comments. So just let me know. Thank you so much again for watching. Until next time. But